I'm starting the 2021 with Kugoo Kirin S1 review. The scooter is well known for its price. It's less than 230 euros today on the day of filming on the geekbuying.com. But is it any good? This is what I will try and answer in today's video. The first obvious great thing about the scooter is how it looks. Check out these product shots that I did a couple of days ago. Now let's try and see how the scooter performs. And in order to be objective, we will use two riders, one weighing around 90 kilos, another one around 55 or less. And we will be comparing the Kugoo Kirin S1 with its older brother, Kugoo S1. Show me how suspension works. Right at the start, our light rider is not able to utilize the suspension at all. It's not really moving. And you also heard that funny noise. It makes cracking noise on this pretty decent road. So if I jump with my full 90 kilograms, maybe it's moving a bit, but the suspension is not really working. That's not really great. At least you can do this, you know. Wait, does it make the same sound when I ride it? Let's try. My goodness. Alright, so this is older Kugoo, and you can see I can actually use the suspension at least a little bit. Another thing that I noticed just off the first meters is that the steering bar is not straight if you compare it to the wheel. Thankfully, this is not a big issue. You just need to loosen up the 4 bolts at the back, and then you can make slight adjustments to your steering bar, and then tighten them back again. I have disassembled the front fork assembly and tried to add some oil in order to make the suspension move, and also to see if the play and the sound in the front suspension is coming from the bearing or is it coming from the suspension unit itself. Unfortunately, it's coming from the suspension unit itself, and I don't know how to fix it. Good suspension units cost more than the scooter itself, and that's the problem with all the cheap suspensions on these scooters. They are shaky and they don't really do the work good, despite Kugoo S1 having front and rear one. I would rather have city scooters without these suspensions. And while adding some oil on the suspension really helped with it moving up and down, that didn't really solve out the sound. Just listen at this clip where I'm riding on a perfectly smooth road. The road is not getting any better than this. And on the next clip, I'm riding on a bit worse road. Make conclusions of the sound for yourself.
3, 2, 1, go!
3, 2, 1, go!
Go!
So what we found out that even if the difference is very small, older Kugoo S1 is a little bit faster and packs a little bit more punch than the Kirin. And also that the rider's weight actually affects performance quite a lot. Both scooters have double braking system, so there is a motor brake and a rear fender one. I never use the fender brake unless it is an emergency situation and my motor brake is not working. So in the next experiment we wanted to check which motor brake is more efficient. The experiment is rather simple. We start over there at the wall, we hit the brakes at this line, and then we see how far do we stop. I think the winner on braking test is obvious. So the motor on Kugoo Kirin S1 has much stronger regenerative braking than on the original Kugoo S1. In fact, the brakes are so strong that the rear wheel is skidding in this footage. And you need to be careful, especially in the conditions that we were riding. It was +1 degree Celsius. We were riding on a very smooth concrete, which when wet is very slippery, and it's easy to get into accident. When they hit the brakes, the rear wheel lifted up and lost the traction and started skidding sideways. And while it was a wet surface, it's really good that the front tire didn't slip off. To be honest, the tires look pretty decent, they don't make any noise, and they have pretty good traction even in such a cold and wet conditions. Every time applying brakes on an electrical scooter, I recommend you to squat down a little bit. This will help you to move your center of gravity a bit lower and also distribute your body weight a little bit backwards. Even if you hit an object with the front wheel, you will not flip over the bars. I'll put the link on the top of your screen to my video of the key tips for riding electrical scooters. And then quickly steering left. It allows me to avoid unexpected obstacles. For the range test we were going full throttle all the time. Temperatures were below 0 degrees Celsius, meaning we had to dress up. So after dressing up my weight was 96 kilograms and the lighter rider was around 60. Let's check in the app. So we have 13% of battery remaining after 12.5 kilometers. And just about that point my speed dropped to around 16-17 kilometers an hour and it was degrading super fast. Like 1 minute later I could only go 12 or 10, and that was the point where I had to stop riding because you never want to drain your battery to complete zero. Lighter rider did better as expected. You still have 48% remaining. Wow. After 13 kilometers. I did like 12.6 and I had to kick scoot because it was no longer driving. And you still have 50% to go. We're freezing doing this. It should last less, right?
I hope so.
So if you did 13, probably
Like 10.
another 7, 8, 10 to go.
Let's have a look.
Yeah, let's see. So what's your max speed now?
At the moment 13, 12, 13, 12.
So we have 18.8 kilometers. Then you died. Let me just push you home.
Push me home.
We believe that this is a decent range for a 6 ampere-hour battery scooter, which is meant to drive in a city, you know, get you to the office and bring you back home. So if we check GPS now, it both said around similar speed, 24, 25. That's the maximum speed you can reach on Kugoo S1 Kirin. Actual speed is limited to 24-25 km per hour by the firmware of the controller, and I think it's decent enough. What I also like is that the speed on the dashboard is actually corresponding to the one on the GPS, meaning you see the true speed and the true range when you ride around, which is always awesome. The user manual will not only tell you to never submerge the product or any parts of it into the water, but also to not allow water or any liquids to come in contact with any part of the product. Older Kugoo S1 claimed to have IP54 water protection level, which is water splash protection, meaning if you splash a little bit of water, nothing bad will happen, and I believe it's very similar with the Kugoo Kirin S1, because the build quality of the Kirin is actually so much better than the older Kugoo S1. Despite of that, already on the 4th day of riding, in conditions like you see in the video, where the roads are wet while there was no rain, the rear light started to fail, and afterwards it just went off completely. So that is most probably part number 1, which you need to reseal if you plan to ride this scooter in the wet conditions. What about the battery compartment, you ask? Well, we tested this as well. I give the scooter a good bath of around 2 minutes, and then I open the battery compartment to see if there is any water in it. And no surprise, there is some after bathing that much. But the amount is not that big, and of course you can seal the battery compartment with the silicone. So if you plan on riding straight after the rain with many puddles or during the heavy rain, I recommend you to seal the battery compartment as well. If that's only a little bit of wet road and you will dry wipe the scooter afterwards, I don't think that's a very big deal. As I am aware, there is no rubber gasket around the LCD screen or the on-off button or the front light. I don't recommend pouring water there. I believe it's possible to make a 3D printed attachable cover, or just get creative with whatever materials you have if you got caught in the middle of the heavy rain. If there is one area that Kugoo Kirin S1 shines versus the predecessor S1 is the build quality, which of course results in the better ride quality. The older S1 has all sorts of problems, some of the biggest ones being the terrible stock wheel, which makes such a large noise that compared to the noise of the front suspension of the Kirin is nothing. And it will cost you around 40 euros to replace that wheel if you want to get the one that is a direct fit. Then let's talk about the rattling handles. Whenever you ride the older S1, you feel out of control on your scooter just because the handles are shaking up and down all the time. Tiny details like that add up to a completely different rider experience. Not to mention the brakes. On the new Kirin S1, the motor brake is really strong, and it's quite the opposite on the old one. In my opinion, the Kirin one looks so much better and it's so much more stable on the road because nothing is shaking. So for a short trip to the office or back or to the supermarket, this is the scooter that I choose. It also folds pretty nicely because you can turn the handlebar sideways. While it's not as small as the folded S1, but the folding mechanism is so much easier to operate, and it's really easy to carry the scooter around after you folded it. One more thing I didn't mention yet is the app that comes with the Kirin S1. I don't think it's that useful. You will most probably set 0 start or kick start one time and also set it to miles per hour or kilometers per hour, and this is it. The navigation is not really working there and the voice control either, unless you're able to read and speak Chinese, I guess. All in all, if you are in the market for a cheap electrical scooter, you care about the style, and you're not planning to participate in electric scooter races or to drive for 3 hours on it one way and back, this can be a scooter for you. And I nearly forgot that if you would like to learn doing wheelies on electrical scooters, being rear wheel drive, Kugoo Kirin S1 might be really good choice for you. But just before you rush and buy one, be mindful of the front suspension noise that I mentioned before in this review. If you are really sensitive to the rattling noises, the sound coming from the front suspension can be something for you to consider. Now, I buy all of my scooters on geekbuying.com just because they have stock in Europe and they ship it very quickly in a couple of business days. Also, the prices are good and I am not risking to pay some import tax or customs tax or something like that. The blue scooter I purchased myself maybe a year or a bit more ago, and the black one was sent to me by Geek Buying for a review. If you think this scooter could be right fit for you, I put the link down in the description where you can go and get this scooter for yourself. I hope you will find this review useful or entertaining. Drop your questions down in the comment below, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!